The HOA thought they could erase a war hero, kidnap him, silence him, and seize his home by force. Margaret Hensley and her corrupt board ran the neighborhood like a private empire, using fraud and intimidation to crush anyone who defied them. But Henry Sullivan wasn't just a stubborn old man, he was a former counterintelligence officer with enough evidence to bring them down. When the truth exploded, their entire operation collapsed in a way no one saw coming. Ethan Sullivan pulled into the driveway of his grandfather's house, a weathered single-story home that stood like a relic among the sterile, cookie-cutter mansions of the neighborhood. The old brick exterior and creaky porch swing clashed with the HOA's vision of suburban perfection. For years, they'd hounded Henry, demanding he modernize or sell, but the Persian Gulf War veteran refused to budge. Ethan always admired his grandfather's defiance, but today, something was wrong. The screen door hung ajar, swaying in the breeze, and the front door gaped wide open, an invitation for trouble. Ethan's pulse quickened as he stepped from his car, gravel crunching under his boots. Henry's old Chevy truck sat in its usual spot, meaning he hadn't left willingly. Scanning the porch, Ethan froze. There, near the steps, lay Henry's cane, sturdy, worn, and never far from his side. Henry needed it to walk. He'd never abandon it. Ethan's fist clenched, a cold dread settling in his gut. Something had happened here. Inside, the house was eerily still, the faint scent of coffee and gun oil lingering. The living room looked untouched, the recliner, military medals on the wall, a folded American flag on the mantel. But on the kitchen table sat a single envelope, its HOA logo glaring like a taunt. Ethan's stomach twisted. The HOA had been after Henry for years, issuing citations, calling his home an eyesore. Now Henry was gone, and this letter was the only clue. He tore it open, revealing a notice of property violation, its legal jargon laced with a handwritten threat. "This is your final warning." Rage surged through Ethan. They'd taken him. He didn't know how or where, but he knew who. Ethan stormed into the HOA office, the glass door slamming against the wall. The clerk, a bored woman named Cindy, barely looked up. "Do you have an appointment?" she droned, clicking her mouse. "Where is he?" Ethan's voice was low, barely controlled. Cindy blinked, feigning confusion. "Who?" Ethan slammed the crumpled notice onto her desk. "My grandfather, Henry Sullivan. He's missing, and this was in his house." "Where is he?" Before Cindy could respond, a sleek door opened, and Margaret Hensley emerged. 50-something, with a polished blonde bob and a designer suit, she looked like a CEO, not an HOA president. "Mr. Sullivan," she purred, her voice dripping with false concern. "Is something wrong?" Ethan didn't buy her act. "Where's my grandfather?" he growled, stepping closer. Margaret tilted her head, a smirk flickering. "Missing? Oh, that's awful. Perhaps he's at a retirement home?" Ethan's vision flashed red. "He'd never leave his cane behind or his door open. You've been trying to force him out for years, and now he's gone. Tell me where he is." Margaret sighed, as if dealing with a tantrum. "You're upset, but let's be rational. Maybe he left voluntarily." Ethan slammed his fist on her desk, rattling picture frames. "He didn't go anywhere willingly." Margaret's smirk faded, but her eyes remained cold. "I can't help you," she said, almost bored. "Try the police." Ethan laughed bitterly. The police had ignored Henry's complaints about HOA harassment before. He locked eyes with her, his voice a dangerous whisper. "If I find out you're behind this, you'll regret it." As he stormed out, he caught a fleeting glance between Margaret and Cindy, a flicker of guilt that confirmed she was hiding something. In his truck, Ethan gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. Margaret's smugness, her refusal to flinch, screamed guilt. The HOA wasn't just arrogant, they were untouchable, protected. Henry was in real danger. Ethan's frustration boiled over, his fist slamming the dashboard. He needed help, but who? The police were useless, and a lawyer was too slow. Then, a memory hit him like a freight train. If anything happens to me, call this number, Henry had said, scribbling it in his old notebook. Ethan had laughed it off as paranoia, but now, with Henry's cane abandoned and that threatening letter, it felt like a lifeline. He dug out the notebook, finding the faded number. His thumb hovered over the dial button. This was crazy, maybe it was a dead end, a relic from Henry's military days. But Margaret's smirk and that open door pushed him to act. He pressed call. It rang 3 times, then a deep voice answered. "This is Agent Cole." Ethan's throat went dry. No greeting, just business. "I was told to call if something happened to Henry Sullivan," he said. Silence then. "What happened?" Ethan explained, the open door, the cane, the HOA letter. Another pause, then Cole's tone sharpened. "Where are you?" "In my truck outside their office." "Stay there. Don't move. Don't talk to anyone." The line went dead. 15 minutes later, 3 black SUVs roared into the lot, doors flying open. Men in dark suits spilled out, armed and purposeful. Ethan's heart pounded. This wasn't just backup, it was a reckoning. Margaret Hensley ruled the HOA like a dictator. Homeowners cowered under her citations, grown men buckled under fines. But when the office doors swung open, the air vanished. 4 federal agents entered, their tailored suits screaming authority. The lead agent, Cole, held up a search warrant, his steel blue eyes locked on Margaret. Her stomach plummeted. "Where is Henry Sullivan?" Cole demanded, his voice surgical. Margaret forced a smile, her voice thin. "I don't know what you're talking about." Cole stepped closer, suffocating. "We know about the fraudulent citations, the developer deals, the forged votes, the illegal seizures." He dropped a black folder onto her desk, photos spilling out, cash exchanges, incriminating emails, and a chilling image of Henry, bound and bruised. Margaret's world tilted. "This is outrageous," she stammered. Cole tapped the photo. "Where is he?" She opened her mouth, but no words came. Cole nodded to another agent, who spoke into his phone. "Team Bravo, move on the target." They already knew where Henry was. In a damp basement, Henry sat tied to a chair, a bruise on his cheek but a grin on his face. "Took you long enough," he told Ethan as an agent cut him free. Henry stood, wincing, and pulled a USB drive from his boot, tossing it to Cole. "Every illegal deal, fraud, and threat they've pulled for 15 years. Ethan blinked. "How?" Henry smirked. "They thought I was just an old vet. They didn't know I spent 20 years in counterintelligence. I let them take me to get to the top." Cole studied the drive. "This ends tonight." The crowd outside the HOA office swelled, their anger palpable. Margaret, pale and cornered, raised her hands. "We were just keeping the neighborhood respectable," a man scoffed. "You stole homes," another yelled. "You threatened us." Cole held up the damning documents, and the crowd roared. "Lock her up," they chanted. Handcuffs snapped around Margaret's wrists. Henry watched, satisfied. The HOA's reign was over. The takedown was relentless. By morning, federal agents swarmed the neighborhood, arresting board members and developers. Assets were frozen, and deals cancelled. News exploded, FBI raids HOA and massive corruption scandal. Margaret, once untouchable, was a trembling wreck in handcuffs, her empire dust. Henry's house, the eyesore they targeted, was declared a historic landmark, forever beyond their reach. Henry stepped from an SUV to cheers. Neighbors, reporters, and cameras mobbed him. "Mr. Sullivan, how does it feel to be back?" a reporter shouted. Henry scanned his porch, the swing, and the steps. They thought they could erase me, he said, smirking. Turns out, I was the one erasing them. Ethan sat beside him later, still reeling. Henry sipped coffee, relaxed. I've fought wars, kid. Taking down an HOA? Easiest battle I ever won. Ethan shook his head, awestruck. His grandfather wasn't just a hero, he was history, a man who'd faced war, bureaucracy, and betrayal, and emerged unbroken. The HOA's fall sparked debate. Was Henry a vigilante or a victim? Did he go too far, baiting the HOA into kidnapping him? Or was his cunning the only way to expose their corruption? Some called him reckless, others a legend. The scandal raised questions. How far should you go to fight injustice? Can one man topple a corrupt system without crossing lines? What do you think? Was Henry Sullivan a hero, a schemer, or both? Share your thoughts in the comments below and tell us, when is it okay to play dirty to win a fight? Like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories of justice and betrayal. Let's keep the conversation going.